Hi, good evening, and welcome to our Isogenics webinar. My name is Gina Redzanik, and I have been with Isogenics since 2013. Not only have I been loving and enjoying the products, but I have also taken upon the income opportunity, which has completely changed my life. So I know so many of you are really interested in the products and also the business opportunity that we have with Isogenics. So what I wanted to do tonight was introduce Dr. Paul Arciero and have him share some things that are so exciting and different that Isogenics is doing that other companies are not. And I was so excited to see Dr. Paul at a Super Saturday a few weeks ago. And thank you again for being on this webinar tonight and sharing some of these just amazing things that sets Isogenics apart from the other companies.
Well, thanks for having me, Gina. And yeah, you're exactly right. They are doing some things that are very unique, very novel compared to many of the other health and wellness companies that people have a choice to follow and to benefit from. So it's a real honor. I always never take these opportunities for granted. So thanks for having me. I'm going to go ahead and dive right in, if that's okay.
Please, thank you.
Yeah. So I think, I always like to start off by providing some people a background on where I'm coming from so that they can have a perspective on the information that I'm presenting. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. So give me just 1 second. So I think all of you can see what I have up there. Awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and just bring it. So as Gina said, I've been an active researcher for a long time. I'm someone that's totally devoted to what I'm doing, and what that allows me to do is present and talk to people with all different walks of life. So I've been talking to people who are interested in just getting off the couch and getting back into an active lifestyle, people that want to lose weight, people that want to put on weight, in fact, oftentimes muscle mass, people that want to get active and get back into the game of life. So that's where I'm coming from. I serve on lots of different scientific advisory boards. You see here I'm part of the International Protein Board, which is a world recognized international nutrition board that is focused on protein. So there's a group of 17 of us now from all over the world. So it's a great honor to be a part of that. And I have a #1 Amazon best-selling book as well, The Protein Pacing Diet. So please check that out as well. But what I wanted to do here is highlight what really sets Isogenics apart. And I think it's really important for everyone to be aware of this. So again, I know many of you are coming to this maybe just recently, maybe for the first time, maybe some of you have even been involved and around Isogenics or other health and wellness companies for a long time. So what I want to do is provide you what you should be focused on and really identifying as the separation from what maybe others are doing in terms of the validity and the high standard of quality that the company is operating from. And so I want to just start with one of the things that Isogenics does that not a lot of other companies are doing. And it truly does separate them from what else is out there. So it's the emphasis that they have on scientific research. And I start here just because many companies might say that they conduct research or they're using products that have been scientifically tested, but what we refer to that is something called borrowed science, meaning they're kind of taking science that has been conducted on certain ingredients done by scientists or other investigators, and then just simply stating that the science has been done and it's shown that it's effective, and then they go ahead and put whatever ingredient that might be into their product. And that's not necessarily truly testing their product. And I think that's what's so important to do, is making sure that the science that's been done on a particular product from a company, that it has been done on the product itself, not some of the individual isolated ingredients. Although that's of value, it's just of higher value and more worthwhile and more impactful if it's the product that is directly coming from the company itself. And so the 4 things that I've highlighted here on the screen are things that Isogenics does at the highest level. So when they're supporting scientific research, it's first of all third party. What that means is they're going out and identifying scientists from outside of Isogenics that are out in the world wherever they may be in their scientific community, as was the case with me. I was in upstate New York at the time, and of course, Isagenix is located down in Phoenix, Arizona, and they had read some of my research and were interested in it. So we reached out to each other, we contacted each other, and there was a proposal that I had to submit through their scientific advisory board, and then the funding process started. And that's really what's called third-party independent research funding, because we didn't know who each other was, to be honest, at the time that they were interested in conducting the study. And there's value in that because I think it presents a really unbiased picture for the testing of the ingredients. And so that was what was so refreshing to me, is that here this company was coming to me without necessarily having any prior relationship, and was just saying that they were interested in conducting a study. Would I be willing to write a proposal, a scientific proposal to test their products? And so I submitted a proposal like I would to any other organization. For example, I've received funding from the National Institute of Health, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, the National Institute of Aging, other private funded organizations. And so they were adhering, Isagenix in this case, was adhering to the highest standard of scientific research, which I thought was really impressive as a health and wellness company. And then second, when I wrote up the proposal, there was no raising on their end of having the first right of refusal. And what that means is that after I've conducted the study in the confines of my own laboratory and university, they couldn't refuse the data that I was generating and ready to publish. That's what first right of refusal means. And so there was actually no even discussion about it. They didn't even bring it up, almost as though, well, no, you're the expert. You know, to me, they were saying, you're the expert. You do what you need to do to conduct this research in the way that would allow you to have the greatest level of ethical scientific standard and credibility and objectivity and unbiased outcome. And again, that was extremely impressive. So that first right of refusal doesn't happen all the time. Some private industry, you know, they want to make sure that if there's going to be anything published on the data that was generated from a scientist, they want to be able to refuse it if it's not in favor of their company and product. And Isagenix, at no point along the entire process of funding the research that I received to conduct the studies that I performed, had any first right of refusal, even a conversation on it. So that was, again, something that struck me as extremely impressive. The third component of high quality scientific research that we hear all about, you know, in the media, or when we hear scientists talking and discussing these things, and these things make headline news, is that the science needs to be scrutinized and evaluated by the experts located all over the world. And it needs to be blinded, meaning they don't necessarily know who you are, and you definitely should not know who they are. So there's no, at all possibility of a conflict of interest. And so I think that, again, is a really important point, that, you know, the research and conducting the research is one thing, but then taking it to the level of peer review by the experts in a blinded fashion really separates it apart from just about any other research that we talk about. So, and it has to be original research. Original means that it's being conducted on the, firsthand product or ingredient or testing environment. That's really, really important. It's not secondary research, that research that's already been conducted and somebody is just simply referring to it. This is actually the original study that was conducted, testing, in this case, nutritional supplements and nutritional products. And so this original peer-reviewed process of the published studies, again, separates Isagenix from many of the other health and wellness companies that are claiming that they have science and research behind their products. Isagenix has adhered to the highest level. And then finally, the fourth one is the full disclosure. Oftentimes I hear, well, of course, you were going to find something favorable, or Isagenix was going to hire you because I'm a member of their scientific advisory board. And I tell people, well, that would be all fine and dandy, but I'm also a scientific advisory board of other top leading nutrition companies. So Isagenix is not the only company that I serve as a scientific advisory board to. And that's really important because it speaks to the objectivity and unbiased third-party, credible, valid perspective that the research is coming from. That as a scientist, an independent scientist, I'm not employed by Isagenix. I'm, as I said, a scientific advisory board member. I provide some consultation services, but I also do that, like I said, for many other companies, and I've been doing it throughout my entire career. As long as you're fully disclosing any conflict of interest in the published research, then that is of the highest standard. And that's what is done and has been done throughout the history of scientific research. It's very difficult for scientists who have been involved in a particular field of study for any length of time and have achieved a certain level of status to not have a single or a few conflict of interest in terms of serving on scientific advisory boards. That's really important because companies want to have the ability to have feedback and direction of vision from experts in the field. And so that's just the nature of advancing science and advancing any field that's out there. So it happens in business, it happens in science, it happens in art, it happens in medicine, it happens in every successful field. So you need to have experts that can provide that insight, and oftentimes there might be a conflict of interest, but as long as it's fully disclosed in a published study, then that's how you move forward, and you would understand it, and then you move on. And so these 4 points in terms of the high quality scientific research stand alone, and there are things that you should pay very, very close attention to. So as you're moving forward and making a decision about aligning yourself with a health and wellness company, these are the 4 main points of focus in terms of what has built their success of reputation and of product viability and credibility and effectiveness in terms of results that they generate. These are what you have to focus on. So I just wanted to start there. I think it's really important that people have that understanding. So what I'd like to do is move on to a couple of the studies that I've conducted and the findings that I've generated from these studies. And so I'm going to just kind of jump ahead here to a study that I conducted on weight loss. And what was so unique about this study was that Isagenix funded this not just for a period of weight loss, which was for a 12-week period, which is that gray bar that you see there, but they also extended it for an additional year of weight loss maintenance. Now, why that's so impressive is because establishing weight loss is sometimes relatively easy. And many of you probably are familiar with this. You probably lost weight in the past, right? But the weight didn't stay off. It probably crept back on fairly quickly after you lost it. So there's a real risk for companies to support additional funding after the initial weight loss, because the likelihood of weight regain, we call it recidivism, is very, very high. So you don't see a lot of studies that extend beyond a period of weight loss, because you run the risk of having the people gain all of the weight back and then some, and then you don't have much, to stand on or to speak from. But Isagenix was willing, which I thought was incredible as an independent scientist, to say, you know what, after you conduct the weight loss study of 12 weeks, we would like to then continue to extend funding and support of what happens with these people 1 year later. So the total length of time was 15 months. That's a long time in scientific research. Not just for the risk of people gain weight back, but the cost. And so that was another thing that really held my attention and really kind of caught me off guard, was that Isagenix was willing to fund this study for an entire year after the initial weight loss period. And that's just very unique. So this was a study that took 40 men and women that were overweight and needed to have a lifestyle change. They needed an intervention because they were at risk for cardiovascular and metabolic disease. And I put them on something that I've developed called protein pacing and intermittent fasting. And why it worked out so well was because Isagenix had been doing pretty much the same thing of protein pacing and intermittent fasting for the past 14 years at the time that we started this study. So that was very unique. But this is just what we had them eating on 6 days of the week. So we called it a shake day. And the reason was because they were taking 2 shakes every day, one for breakfast and one for lunch. And then the rest of the time they were really providing whole food nourishment whenever they could. But then also at night, they were also having some additional support with a really nourishing meal. So as you can see in the middle column there, women were eating about 1,200 calories, men about 1,500 calories. And you can see the breakdown of protein is about 30%, carbohydrates were 45, and then fats was 25. So it was very, very well balanced. It was not an extreme type of diet that we're so familiar with in the current food culture right now, right? The paleo and zone and keto and plant-based. You know, sometimes those are somewhat more extreme in their makeup of macronutrients. But Isagenix adheres to this lifestyle of a very balanced macronutrient intake. And so, yeah, as you can see, it's really nourishing and sets people up for success. This was the 1 day a week that they were performing what we call an intermittent fasting, and Isagenix calls a cleanse day. Men were consuming about 450 calories and the women about 350 calories. And they were consuming a very, very nourishing antioxidant and adaptogen-rich beverage 4 times a day. And then they were having some additional support with some nourishment. One thing I didn't add onto this, which I want to point out, was we also provided them, if needed, an opportunity to eat a small serving of some nuts, seeds, dried fruit, or fresh fruit and fresh vegetables. Not all of that, they could choose, and we wanted them to aim for about 100 to 150 calories. So, you know, a small little serving of almonds or walnuts, and then maybe some cut up broccoli or carrot or celery or peppers, or maybe a couple of grapes or some berries. So they were doing that as well on this day. Just, you know, at a mid-afternoon snack. And some of them elected to do it and some didn't, but we tried to keep their calories within that range. So what was so unique about this with the men is that even though they were cutting their caloric intake in half, they reported feeling more full. And what that speaks to is the fact that they were being satisfied and what we call satiated on a much lower total calorie intake, in this case 1,500 calories compared to the 3,000, because the food that they were eating was much more nutrient dense. And so one of the things that I want you to take home from this is that Isagenix provides a very, very nutrient dense nutritional program and system to facilitate nourishment while you're undergoing weight loss. And that doesn't always happen. Oftentimes when you're cutting the calories in half, you're also cutting the nutrient density in half in many weight loss diets. And Isagenix does the opposite, that if they're going to have you eating 1,500 or 1,200 calories, the nourishment and the nutrient density goes way up. And that's exactly why these people were feeling more full and more satisfied on half the amount of calories they were normally eating. And you can see that they had about the same amount of protein, even a little bit less. So it was not a high protein diet by any means. Sodium was a lot lower. Fiber was higher, and sugars were cut in half. So it's a very low sugar, high quality nourishment as well. Women, the same thing. They cut their calories in half, but they reported feeling 15% less hungry. So that was a really amazing finding. As you can see, their protein was stayed exactly the same from what they were doing at the much higher calorie intake. Their total carbs and sugars plummeted, and their sodium was down as well, and fiber up. So overall, it was just a remarkable, phenomenal increase in nutrient density, which is why they reported such favorable findings. So here, the summary. What we found was that after the first 11 weeks of the weight loss, the 12th week was when we were collecting the data, which is why we refer to it as 12 weeks. They had a 10% reduction in body weight. So that was equivalent to 25 pounds on average for the men and women. which was just incredible. And women lost just as much as the men, proportionally. So it was really a phenomenal outcome that, there's some evidence where some people and scientists have reported that women may have a more difficult time losing weight than men. But when we put them on this high quality, nutrient dense intake of this high quality nutrition using the Isagenix system, the results were identical for the men and women. They had a 20% reduction in their fat mass, 13% reduction in their waist circumference. It was about 6 inches, which is amazing. 30% reduction in their visceral fat. That's the fat around the organs that we don't want to have because it's very dangerous. And then a 23% reduction in their abdominal. So they lost the equivalent of a basketball inside their abdomen. And this all happened at the same time that their lean, metabolically active muscle mass went up 9%. So that's really incredible. So, we used to say that there's no such thing as spot reduction. Well, this is evidence strongly suggesting that there actually, yes, can be spot reduction if you do it right. If you nourish your body in the right way, you can definitely target certain areas more than others. And that's exactly what happened. So over the course of the 11 weeks, more than 1,000 pounds was lost in these 40 men and women, which is just incredible. And what I'm really excited to be able to report here is that I want to not take up too much time, but these men and women were able to maintain and actually continue to improve in all of those measures at the end of the 1 year. So there was no weight regain in this group of men and women that continued to follow the Isagenix weight loss system. And we actually compared them to a very comparable group of men and women from the beginning 11 weeks that decided, or that we put them on, they didn't decide, but that were put on the Heart Healthy diet by the American Heart Association. They actually started to see an increase in weight gain over the course of the 1 year follow-up. So there was a very, very striking difference in how well they were able to maintain that weight loss and actually continue to improve, in which Isagenix participants performed much, much better. So exciting stuff, and resulted in 3 scientific peer-reviewed publications. So that's really important and exciting to have that scientific objectivity and documentation. But it didn't stop there. One of the other areas that was of interest to me and a lot of other people was this performance. They wanted to know, what about for people that were more fit, that were more active and wanted to continue to lead an active lifestyle? So what I did was I put together another proposal and I submitted it to Isagenix in the same exact fashion that I outlined at the beginning of those 4 major steps of high quality scientific research. And they performed in the exact same way in terms of how they went about reading over the proposal and providing feedback, and then the funding. And again, the funding never comes directly to the scientists. In high quality peer-reviewed scientific third-party research, it always goes to the university, the sponsored research office. And so they're the ones that receive the funding. So in this study, it was the same thing. I took a group of 50 highly trained men and women. So these were kind of the more fit men and women from your community that you might live in. And what we did was we had half of them follow the Isagenix performance system of products that were supporting an active, fit lifestyle. And then the other half followed more commonly available or commercially available fitness and performance products that many of you probably go out and purchase or had purchased at grocery stores and supermarkets and things like that. So many of the same products that you might just get at stores. So we were doing a comparison of the high quality nature of sport performance nutrition products that Isagenix provides versus those that are commercially available. But what's very important here that I wanted to point out also in the weight loss study was that they weren't allowed to exercise in the weight loss study. So the only difference between any of the comparisons that we were making was that the results that occurred in the weight loss study was solely due to the nutrition, what they were eating over that 12-week time period and then over that entire year, because we were measuring and quantifying their physical activity by a little device that they had to wear on their hip. So we were assured that there was no change in their activity level when we were comparing them from the beginning of the weight loss to the end, or when we were comparing them to the Heart Healthy American Heart Association group. There was no difference in activity. So that was not a factor in the beneficial results that came from following the Isagenix weight loss. And then when we got to the performance study, we said we want the only difference to be what they're eating. We wanted their exercise to be absolutely identical. So they were following the same exercise protocol that I've developed called PRISE. And we were able to then rule out that exercise was not the determining factor for the favorable results that I'm going to show you right here. So here was the exercise program. They did a resistance training bout on Monday. They recovered and rested on Tuesday. Wednesday, they did high intensity intervals. Thursday, they recovered. Friday, they did a stretching routine, and then Saturday or Sunday, they got to choose. Most of them chose Saturday. They performed an endurance bout, and they were exercising together. So the group that was following the Isagenix performance products versus those that were consuming the commercially available sport nutrition performance products, all were exercising together during the entire study. So there was no difference in the exercise routine. And what we found was remarkable. For the women, for example, they had twice as much of an improvement in their upper body muscular strength. So the number of push-ups they could do. They had twice as many sit-ups as a measure of their core muscular endurance. And so those are represented by these figures over here on the right. Sorry, I wanted to blow it up here for you. It's probably looking a little small. Sorry about that. So here was the original group. So if you wanted to take a picture of that, go ahead and snag it right there so you can see it a little bit bigger. And then the other one that I wanted to show you was the exercise program. And this was the actual nutrition between the two groups. So this was the control group, what they ate during the day for breakfast, mid-morning snack, lunch, afternoon snack, dinner, evening snack, and then what they were doing on the exercise days in terms of supplementing with fluid, hydration, and electrolytes. And then the last column is showing you what the Isagenix group was consuming. So again, I don't expect you to write all this down, but if you take a screenshot of it, you'll have it. And then the exercise program, same thing, just grab a screenshot. But these results were really, really impressive because these were results that were observed in women that were already at the high end of the fitness scale, right? So they weren't starting off as sedentary. And so to see this magnitude of an increase following the same exact exercise program, but the only difference was what they were nourishing their body with, is groundbreaking research. And it's why it has gained so much attention out in the fitness community, because to observe these level of results simply from changing your nourishment is really remarkable. But it didn't stop there. Women also got significantly stronger in their upper body muscular power, and that's the ability to generate force over a factor of time. So when we look at the most successful athletes and performers physically, their ability to generate maximal force over time, in this case what we call power, is really the determining factor to success. And as you can see in this slide here, the women that were consuming the Isagenix nutritional performance products had a significant increase in their performance. Now, what's really important is that the other group improved too. So, you know, the exercise program that we had them following was effective. It actually got them more fit, even though they were already fit. So I think that's what's a really important take-home message, is that it's not like the exercise program wasn't effective in improving all of these measures. It was. We had, you know, wonderful improvement in both groups. It was just that the Isagenix group that was following the nutrition sport performance products had this amazing increase above and beyond that which was occurring from the exercise program alone by the other group. And that is really the take home. Interestingly, also, like happened in the weight loss study, these women were reporting that they were less hungry. And that was an amazing finding. And then the men, same thing. They got stronger in the upper body. They got stronger in the lower body. So again, here, nothing different. The exercise was identical. The only difference was what they were nourishing their body with. The other really fascinating improvement in the men was that their flexibility. So both groups got, you know, better flexibility in their lower back and hamstrings, but the men that were following the isogenics performed better. And that may be related to some of the nutritional support that they were taking in the form of these adaptogens and antioxidants, and helping the body relax and generate greater muscle elongation and pliability and mobility. So really an amazing flexibility increase in the group that was following the isogenics. And then they're aerobically, so they were able to perform a test of a maximal exertion of aerobic fitness at a much greater speed from the other group, again, following this exact same exercise program. So great stuff, both resulted in peer-reviewed publications. And so, when Gina asked me to come on and give this, I thought, what I wanted to do was focus on those components of isogenics and how it's providing the highest quality nourishment for people who are interested in weight loss, people who are interested in just health improvement, people who are interested in physical fitness and performance. I thought first and foremost, I want to make sure that there's a high level understanding that the way that isogenics funds scientific research is just unique, because it's at such a high level of standard. And then second, the amazing results that were observed in these studies that were ruling out any other potential confounding variables, like in this case, in the weight loss, exercise and physical activity. There was absolutely no difference. We weren't allowing it. And so the results were solely due to how they were nourishing their body. And then in the performance study, we were ruling out any differences, of course, in fitness by having them perform the same fitness program, so that the only difference could be what they were providing their bodies nutritionally. And that's a really good starting point. And just one thing to finish on is that even though isogenics has a no compromise, which I know you've heard from Gina and the other isogenics team leaders, they also go one step further. So not only are they testing their raw ingredients and their finished products by third-party analysis, but they're also sending their performance products, their amped products, to the leading organization in the world for testing for banned substances and things that aren't supposed to be in the product. It's called Informed Sport Certification. And you should do your due diligence, because Informed Sport is, again, the industry leader in testing for not just banned substances, but also other things in terms of the quality of the ingredients and the amounts of the ingredients that they're stated on the label that are supposed to be in the products. And isogenics has passed with flying colors. In fact, I just conducted another study on some of their products, and I just got back the analysis, and they are putting together products with ingredients in the exact way that they're putting on their label. And not every company can say that they do that. So really, a great honor.
I don't know if are you guys fired up, because I know that this is just mind-blowing to me. I'm so excited. This is why I continue to use the products, because I just know how great and nourishing it is. And oh my goodness, those results were so amazing. And this is exactly why I'm so committed and fired up to be partnered with this company. I know there's a lot of innovative things coming. It's just getting better and better. So whether you're only interested in being a customer, or if you're interested in also partnering with this company and earning income from home like I have and my husband has and our team, I just hope you're more fired up and that you feel the high integrity of this company. And I just so appreciate you, Dr. Paul. Thank you so much for doing this webinar. Now we have it recorded for us to share. So I thank you so much.
Well, thanks for having me, and always here to help.